Good morning, everybody. Live stream is now on. Welcome to those who are joining us online. We're very much looking forward to this update on the Raumati pool building seismic strengthening project. So I'll pass over to the team. Thank you.
Oh, good morning. My name's Calvin Irvine. I'm the property manager for council, if you don't know me, and I'm ably assisted here by Lauren Collins, who is the senior advisor in the property team. So we'll just go through our presentation for the seismic strengthening project that we've been working on for the Raumati pool. And I'll just click into background for Lauren.
So the Raumati pool has been closed as a pool facility for over 13 years. The asset was managed by the parks team and was transferred to the property team in late 2022. We undertook a condition report, an asbestos report and a seismic assessment of the building. The seismic assessment came back at a 15% NBS rating, which meant that the building is earthquake prone. Following that, we put a earthquake prone notice on the building, and the waterfront bar and kitchen are a long-standing tenant who are upstairs at the building.
Okay, so just looking at the outcomes and the constraints. So the pool must be strengthened as far as legislative requirements, being an earthquake prone building, one of the few that we have, which is a good thing, and adjoined to the waterfront bar and kitchen. It's been proposed that the strengthening work is done to 70% MBS, and that's at IL2. There's a 1, 2 and a 3 rating. We're going for a 2. The strengthening of the building really is to safeguard the facility so that any further works, the building is going to be able to be used for any other type of facility event or whatever at a later stage. The seismic work is planned to align with the proposed upgrade that is also being carried out by the tenant within the waterfront bar. So if there's going to be work carried out, it'd be silly not to do this at the same time. Budget constraints are our biggest issue, and so the planned upgrade of the main pool area is set out in the stage 2, where the northern end is part of stage 1. The stage 2 will be set out in the next LTP, and the works on that site, because of where it's situated, being on a reserve, we can only work within that footprint of that site, so that's another constraint.
So the plan is to strengthen the building in 2 stages. Stage 1 is to strengthen below the waterfront bar and northern end of the building. The stage also includes all the old pool service buildings, and that work is to be carried out in the 25-26 financial year.
Okay, stage 2, as just touched on before, the strengthening of the remainder of the building, which includes those structural laminated beams, the over the open pool area, the eastern and western walls, and the southern end of the building, which was where the Raptors club used to be. And that's all planned for the next LTP. So the demolition and excavation of the existing concrete roof beam infill. The way the building is being built is Stilton beams, and in between the Stilton beams there's concrete infill that's unreinforced. That needs to be knocked out, because there's really nothing to stop those beams going left or right, depends upon the event. removal of internal framing and sections of existing ceilings, the existing fire and building services where required, and then installation of new steel beams, the footings, the foundations of those, and how they're set into the existing footprint. Make good removal of any of the old steel framing and making good. The total cost that we've got on that is $835. And the project timeline is 6 months for stage 1. So we're hoping around the by Christmas time, or depends upon start date. It could be into the January, February of the new year.
So this is just a floor plan showing the 2 stages. So stage 1 is coloured there in green, which is the northern end of the building and the changing rooms in the old pool service buildings. And then I'm going to say it's on my picture here, it looks purple. Coloured is the stage 2, which is the pool structure and the southern end of the building.
So here is that northern end in a more of a structural view, and it will show how the steel beams and the framework will be made up. So that will be the new structure underneath that northern end. There's some side elevations where it's showing where it's taking the load and the steel portal frames. Here's a picture that a lot of people will have seen before, and this is really where we're looking at the stage 2. And when you look at the laminated beams, the beautiful beams and fit for purpose, where it is let down is you can see the plates where the rafters and are bolted on. They're galvanised, not allowed to be galvanised. They've got to be stainless steel, so they all have to be changed. Where they are mounted into the concrete, there's no drawing of the base plates. We've potholed down into the concrete to try and get a layout of the steelwork where the beams are, the footprints are, the plates, but it didn't really show us too much. We also tried to X-ray the concrete to try and get a steel layout. So what we're planning on doing is putting in whole new base plates to all those beams. Also on the side of the building, on the east and western side of the building, needs for that lateral movement. Okay, so we put in what we call K-beams. In fact, they're a big X, but they're called K-beams, and they work every second bay, and they work to stop that lateral side movement. Okay, and that will be part of the stage 2 as well. So we're working through our legal requirements. We're trying to make something where it's going to have a positive impact now and in a very short term for the community, and trying to plan the stages so we can manage our costs and work to our current budgets. So hopefully on that, any questions, please?
Yeah, thank you. I've just got one to kick off. If we wanted to bring the work forward, would that be a variation to the next annual plan? Because there's an annual plan in between now and the long-term plan. Is that something we could consider? Or the future council could consider?
Is that for stage 2?
Yeah.
looking at stage 2, we would have to really work hard down on that budget to see what that will determine, and then put that into for the capital
Yeah. So at the moment,
fund, to see if we've got that money.
at the moment, I think next year's capital budget is about 89 million already. So, and we're currently trying to look at ways to manage that to keep us within our debt ceiling. So adding more into next year would make that extremely difficult, because we've already got a whole lot of prioritised work in there. And maybe the year following year, so the first year of the LTP, that this would be, we could look at it in that sense, loading it into that year. But next year, I just can't see how we could add something else, and when there's not an immediate driver to have to do that stage 2 work at the moment. And that, one of the reasons why we're having the briefing today was just to let you know, because I'm not sure if we've actually spoken about the work previously, but the waterfront bar are doing some work, and that's going to be very visible, and so that's why we're doing stage 1 now, to try and align, because all of that work is above that
What's
area.
the time frame for that?
I think they've started they're doing it, and they're trying to keep the place open while they do the work, so they're doing it in stages, so it's over the next 6 to 8 months.
Yeah,
So,
pretty much.
so we've had a number of meetings with them, and again trying to align to make sure that, you know, we're not interfering with what they want to do, but also that what they do is not compromised by the earthquake strengthening. So that's really why we're splitting it into those 2 stages. Do this work now, and then come back and do the latter work when we need to, and when we've got the funds to do it.
Yes, we're looking for the year 27, 28 for stage 2.
Okay, Liz?
Yeah, somewhere in my memory, there is this thing that says we don't own the whole building. There's a bit on the end that is owned by...
That was the Raptors.
Right, okay. So they're no longer there,
Right.
is that right? But do they still own it?
No, there were. We had after the building was moved over into the property portfolio. We sort of did a bit of an investigative work just to try and find out about the site. We didn't really have the history ourselves, and found out this bit isn't council's. And then, but then the Raptors were working out of the new pool, and they'd sort of gone into recess. Then we had a discussion with the Raptors. They were, and at the end of that discussion, that part of the building was handed back to council.
Right, okay. And then the other question that I have is, like, there's still the actual pool inside there, you know, the dugout bit.
Yeah.
Is that going to be covered in, and have you sort of thought of what the longer term uses might be for the building to particularly accommodate some of those uses?
It can't be used as a pool again.
No. But are you going to cover it over to make a...
Well, a lot of those things would be determined. You know, what we would be doing is making it so that it's seismically and structurally safe. Then we would, you know, canvass the community of what usage or anything for that particular site. There have been a lot of you know, people have come to us with ideas already what they think it could be used for, and that might mean that you actually keep the pool structure itself in place, and it may be used for like an indoor sports type thing, for like I think it's called padded soccer or something like that, or you just fill the whole thing in, have and put a concrete top over it, and use it as a flat space that could be used for a lot of different other purposes.
Yeah, I would have thought the latter would be a bit more flexible, but I
Yeah,
guess
we-
we need to make a decision, do we, sooner rather than
No,
later?
yes, so this work doesn't include filling in the pool
No.
structure, so, and we might need to actually get in through there to do some of that stage 2 work, I'm not sure. But, so Jess, talking to Brendan, so it's Brendan's space, really, we have been looking at how might we run a process to look to make use of the pool in the future, and there does need to be a piece of work set aside to do that work, and at the
I
moment...
think Bede already did something on that, didn't he?
Yeah, we've had, there was one proposal to have badminton courts in the actual pool, but there's been lots of different options put up there. I think it's more about maybe now looking at a more coordinated, we're actually into a project that will ultimately end up in something happening with the pool, because the waterfront have suggested some options that they'd like to consider. So I don't know if Brendan wants to elaborate on that, but we are aware that we definitely need to look at either forming a project to do that, and when does that fit within the current program around LTPs and annual plan? Does it need some funding, or can we run that community engagement side of it internally and just set it up? And then that would lead to then providing some sort of budget structure for what we might do with the building. But at the moment, that's sort of sitting within Brendan's team, and yeah, we've had some high level conformations about it, but there's no plan at the moment. But
Because there's
that's
still a lot of
certainly-
community interest in this
Yes.
space, so I think it'd be good to kind of formalise that process in terms of what the end users might be to guide what happens in that stage 2.
Yeah, I think the stage 2, possibly you might want to have an add-on to stage 2, which is fill the pool in and do some other work around the building. So it might make sense to do that in one go with one contractor. Yep.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not sure around timing. So if we're going for 2027 for that work, then again we'd probably need to factor in something maybe to next year's annual plan, maybe to start that work in terms of
Yeah.
maybe just
The
a community engagement
Yeah,
part,
yeah.
rather than a need to invest a whole lot of money in consultants
yeah.
providing,
Yeah.
maybe do that front end, and then that would then trigger
And that
how
would
much do you need to
guide,
spend on
yeah.
a design or whatever it might be in terms of end use. So that's
I
definitely
guess
something
the
we've
key,
talked about.
The key to it is the scope of stage 2, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
I mean, we've done so much engagement around that space already that then has to be thrown out, and what I wouldn't like to see is more engagement without some kind of action that's going to take place as a result of that.
Yeah.
Because we've had, I remember we were going to establish it as a performing arts venue, and then Te Raukura happened, so.
We were going to have a marine discovery centre. Remember that
Yeah,
one?
exactly, yeah, so, yeah. Is that you, Liz? Quite like to move on to B.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I agree. The timing's obviously key. I agree. There's probably, if we go and do a whole lot of engagement now, then nothing happens for another 3 years. People get a bit, again, sick of it. But great to see this coming forward. Thank you. I feel like I should be banging my fist and say, how dare you not do it all immediately? But of course, the budgets are as they are, and so we do have to work with them. There's going to be some questions about, okay, if we're going to do a bit now and the next bit's going to wait a couple of years, what happens in between? Can it be used at all during that time, or is council's position going to be, no, the earthquake rating means that we can't use it at all?
Pretty much your last statement, really.
Okay.
And the way that the building is, we are trying to make it so that it can't be accessed for it to be vandalised, and make it safe, and but as such there will be that northern end, because part of that strengthening will be making good those services there. So, but that end will, it won't also be available for public use either. No.
I think though, if timing wise, so if you think if we're in doing stage 1 through till February next year, so you're into 2026, we're talking about funding for stage 2 in 2027. That then only leaves, you've got 8 to 12 months to run some sort of engagement. That sort of would line up quite well in terms of timing. And if you've got, you've got to do some prelim design work to add on to stage 2 for something you might want to do with the building, you're then into quite a, not necessarily seamless, but that's not a bad work program if you were looking at this as a new project. We're going to start now with some initial work, but over the next 18 months, we'll look at some level of engagement, some level of design, and then you're into some of the construction work.
Would be a positive timeline.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons for today was really to have that conversation more about, awareness, and that this is now leading into probably the need to actually really do something with the pool. Now that people are going to see us investing some money in it, that it needs to be tied into a plan to take it forward into something more useful than what it is at the moment.
There's certainly no point pouring all this money into it if we do nothing with it, right?
That's right. And that was the other thing, just for you to be aware that we are going to start. This is a serious amount of money. We don't think we have a choice in terms of not doing that work. I mean, I don't think there would be a lot of appetite for demolishing the building or not investing in the earthquake strengthening. Initially, I think the initial budget was a bit smaller than, I don't know what the original number was, but again, it's now awareness. We're going to start spending money. It's going to create some interest. The waterfront are going to invest a whole lot of money in there too. That's also going to generate another round of public interest. So, and I think it's having a chat to Brendan. Maybe we look at that February, March next calendar year, maybe to start to think about starting an engagement process around the stage 2, if you want to call it that, in terms of stage 2 structural and use of the building as a project.
Okay. Just a couple other questions. So stage 2, do we have an indicative cost at this stage?
About 1.6.
Okay, cool. And just in terms of ongoing maintenance, there's sort of a little bit of chatter that hits me from time to time about how the state of the building. Are we sort of upkeeping that regular maintenance to keep it looking nice in the meantime?
Our OPEX a year on that site is around about 3K. At the moment, we're spending around about 4.5. And a lot of that has been due, unfortunately, to vandalism. And there have been some areas where have needed a bit of extra work. But we keep that OPEX, and that's a current figure, and we keep that OPEX up.
I think I don't know about making it look good though, but that's probably a bit more money than $3,000 a year. But I'm pretty sure in terms of weather tightness and all of those maintenance requirements, that the long-term integrity of the building is not something that is causing us concerns at the moment in terms of maintenance.
I think probably a couple of things that people are worried about is just like grass growing from the gutters and sort of general crap around the place, really.
Yep. Yeah. They've all been cleared. When the building came over into the property portfolio, we carried out those 3 reports. We do that for any of our buildings: the condition report, the asbestos report, and the MBS. Once we get those back, and we found that the condition report was fair, but there were some that were areas that were good, but there were other parts that weren't, which had a high rating of fair, or a high fair rating, and but then getting that 15% MBS was a bit of a shocker. And then we worked out the OPEX from that. So we made sure that the roof wasn't leaking. So we spent quite a bit of money at that first tranche, getting it up to a decent spec, and it's just maintaining that now.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Cool.
Thank you. Apologies, Madam Mayor, but I just couldn't help myself by saying this. But my son has been asking me and nagging me for the last 3 or 4 years what's happening with the Raumati pool, because he's got great intentions of how to use it, and it would bring lots of people in, Mr. Larissy, from all around the country to spend their money at Raumati shops. You have? So I just want to say thank you for getting onto it, because now maybe he might stop nagging me for, when's it going to be ready?
talking to.
I'll move on to Tan.
How would the council feel about a community working bee around the outside of the building? Like go and have a bit of a clean up, bit of a wash down, that kind of thing. Would the council be all right with that? Not inside, just the outside.
Yeah, it's just the part of the outside is going to be construction zone, so we wouldn't be allowed to have a working bee within that area.
Even if it was done before they came on site.
Yeah, but that'd be something be happy to discuss.
Okay, next question. Would you be happy with a shipping container next door to the building since we can't use the end part of the building?
Whereabouts?
Where the Raptors were at the end, because the Waka Ama would love to start up there. They've been gifted a Waka, and I've got Pram College and Kapiti College dying to get on the water. And they need a base.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things with the stage one is that we need to get access through that concrete block wall to get the plant and machinery into the building. Yeah. So you're going to that's going to be a construction site. So at the moment we're looking at cutting and this is some of the future proofing as well. So we're going to cut an access in and make sure it's adequate for a nice gate or something in the future. But it will be, for 8 months, it'll be a construction site, and it will be quite extensive because it won't just be in the building. They'll have a container probably with their tool, they'll have establish a site there. So I don't think it's going to be useful, at least in the next 8 months, for us to do much on that site other than get this work done.
Could we put a shipping container on the other side, away from the pool, like where the old Waka Ama used to be, the old two...
Well, we can have a look offline. Yeah. We can have a chat and see whether something like that could work.
Yeah, please. Just give us a call.
Good, thank you. I think that's all. Thank you.
Online.
Martin. Martin, are you there?
He's just unmuting.
Yep.
How's your hui going?
He's trying to unmute still.
Okay, we can't hear you, Martin, so I'll move on to Lawrence and then I'll come back to you, okay? Yeah, I'll come back to you after Lawrence, okay? Lawrence?
It's a sizable chunk of change that we're talking about, 2.4 over stage 1 and stage 2. I'm concerned about the fact we don't have a clear plan for the building before we start investing huge amounts of money in it. That concerns me a little bit, because what we end up doing is potentially is spending money and doing something and then undoing it because it doesn't fit with what we end up deciding as a plan. So I guess I'm just flagging I have some concerns in this, because I would want to see us have a really clear plan of what we're wanting to use the building for before we spend, particularly stage 2. Stage 1 I get, because we're obviously got to strengthen it because we've got a tenant upstairs. But I'm also conscious this is open space zone that we've got. Is that the best use of that space? Have we considered the issues around climate change and sea level rise and huge investment on a property that one of the reasons we turned Te Urahi down was its location close to the sea. We were spending huge amounts of money in there. Same here. Raumati is known as an erosion zone, and we know we've got seawalls protecting stuff already, and we're talking about putting $2.4 million into a site that has a lot of risk associated with it. I think we've got to ask some pretty hard questions around this. I get that it's a loved community asset that we haven't been using for 13 years. Community's got some pretty big things about it. We don't have a plan though. We haven't talked about the issues related to coastal erosion and the risk of spending $1 million on stage 1 in a space that is high risk. Is it insurable? Have we asked that question in the future? I get waterfront bars pretty popular at the moment. It's well used. I guess we do have a responsibility to our tenant in regards to that, but I think there are some pretty heavy questions that we've got to ask and due diligence around whether we're spending money appropriately here. So those are just my comments I want to raise.
I mean, one of the reasons for today was to make you aware of the scale of that investment. Now, it is in the LTP, but the council are open to not proceeding with stage one if you chose. We haven't signed a contract with anyone. I mean, the issue is that there's been commitments made to the waterfront in terms of the work to do that seismic strengthening, and that has been an ongoing conversation for at least the last 2 years. So, but in terms of insurance, yes, it's insured at the moment. I mean, I can't recall what that area looks like in the Jacobs work in terms of the 30, 50 or 100 year. But we could do that. But yeah, so
It'll be underwater if I remember.
maybe in the 100. Because you've got the Wharamuku there, that's the mouth. So I'm not sure how much of an issue that was in terms of erosion in those. But again, stage two is really, I think we'd struggle to back out of stage one with the waterfront and the community potentially. But stage two is definitely that conversation about use, I guess, and what that might look like in terms of dollars too, because as Kelvin said, the 1.5 is just the seismic strengthening, not filling the pool in or doing anything.
So my understanding is the 834 is just seismic.
Yes.
There's no internal work done in stage one at all. It's just
They'll probably clear out a lot of that rubbish that's in there at the moment in terms of if you have a look inside, that they'll have to probably remove a lot of that stuff as part of that work.
Yeah,
at that
a
end.
couple of the internal walls to come out. And that is to allow steel work and that going back in, but and we'll leave a bit more of an open canvas for whatever at a at a later stage. The rental that we get off the waterfront bar is just changing. It's 44 going up to 61, 62k. So it is a blue chip income for council as a tenant. One of our better ones.
Cover that investment in maybe 12 years.
Martin's online now. Just a
I
quick
think that
maths,
was
and he said
Nigel
12,
we could hear actually.
12 years.
No. Oh, sorry.
Nigel.
No, it was me.
Oh.
Just doing the math.
Okay, I'll just
So I
keep
just-
going
I
with
just-
Lawrence, and then we'll.
So I just wanted to
Come to you.
flag those as concerns, and for me, I think we need to do a bit more work in the climate change coastal hazards area. I get that we're probably signed into stage one, and I get what we're hearing from the community, but I want to make sure that we've done due diligence on before. Like, this is significant money we're talking about. It's 2.4, what's that, 2.5% of rates or thereabouts, 2% of rates?
It'll be capex.
It is capex, yes, I know, but we have to pay the interest on it. So there is a cost to ratepayers in this, so we've got to make sure we're doing it right.
Absolutely. So I think that's a good reason to proceed with the stage two going through an LTP process. So you could investigate a whole lot of things with your pre-engagement, go out with some clear plans, and ask the question: do we want to spend the money or not?
And that's what we thought too.
Yeah.
And that's, putting in the two stages.
Yeah.
Makes it, and the way the building is, it really, it's easy to make it into the two stages as well.
Well, that's handy. B, did you want to follow up on this, and then
All
I
right.
can go to Martin,
Yeah,
so that
sure,
we can
thank
just
you.
have a bit of a flow of themes.
Yes.
Bede?
Let me give an angry tirade in response to Councillor Kirby's comments there. No, I think important questions. Obviously, this table should be asking those questions, Lawrence. So, good for you for raising them. There is a lot of community interest in this building, I would say. If you asked particularly the Raumati community, they would say it's high on their priorities. But there's also a lot of people in Raumati who are very concerned about rates rises. So they'll want to see that it's balanced and wise as well. We've got the coastal hazard plan change coming up, and some of that will clarify the issues around effective sea level rise potentials around there. But I think that probably from what I've seen, not just in Jacobs, but the DeLonghi report, that probably in the lifetime of that building, it's not at risk of being overtaken by the sea. So I think we could invest in a building, and by the time that building's had its realistic life, that sea level rise won't be an issue. But yeah, good point, Mayor, that the LTP process will help us to have those conversations. So yeah, that's wise. If it came to it, my understanding is that stage 2, you could carve off that part of the building and turn it back to park if you had to. Though of course there's enormous cost in that as well. So balancing of interests here, but for me, I'm certainly keen to see it turn into something that gives us life down in that part of the beautiful coast.
Martin?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, and no, great up here. Thank you. Got up here yesterday. Looking forward to the coming 2 days. Just building on what Beeb was just saying around that the cost. I mean, this is a capex spend. Look, it does seem a substantial amount, but yeah, as a capex spend, that gets spread over the life, so it gets spread over 20 or 30 odd years. So that sort of brings that down, because one of the first things off my list of all that money going into this space is the fact that the gateway, which by the way, Lawrence, a key issue wasn't the climate stuff. To be honest, it was community consultation, but is that that budget was lost down there, although that wasn't the intent of the submission of the motion that came in at the time. But I'll park all that. I think the first question for me is just absolutely 100% clarifying. The restaurant that's down there is a permitted activity. That's all been taken care of?
I think so.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. No, just didn't want something like that to bite us a little bit further on down the track. That was all. In relation to the upgrade in stage 1, is that picking up those external toilets as well? Sorry, I just can't click back to the map as such.
No,
It doesn't.
no.
Okay, so the just clarifying, the only community toilets we've got down there then are the ones at the front of the park. Is that right?
Yes, there's Exelou, and then there are the older concrete block toilets that have been there since the 60s.
Yeah, and they're not getting touched as part of this zhuzh up in stage 1. Is that right?
No, the Exelou and the toilets.
Not so much the Exelou, I was talking more the concrete ones. Those concrete ones are right next door to the Raumati Pools building. Is that right?
Yes.
And the tractor shed. And the tractor shed.
Have they been painted within the last 12 months?
Okay, so we're tipping 835,000 into doing up a building for a commercial client, yet we're not actually looking at sort of tidying those toilets up at the same time. Is that right?
Not quite. We are investing in the building because we're obliged to make sure that it's safe.
Yep, I get that.
So regardless of whether it was the waterfront or whoever it was, we'd still be looking at having to do that work. I don't think. I mean, the toilets, you might look at whether or not stage 2 opens that building up, which would have toilets in there. That why you might be able to demolish those external toilets and improve the offering as part of stage 2 with the building itself. So that would be part of that conversation, I think, in terms of that overall site, which would include the toilets.
Okay, all right. No, just checking, because they are pretty rough down there. That was all.
Yeah, could I just follow up on the toilets, Martin, before you move on to your next thing? So when we couldn't get funding to replace the toilets in Paikakariki when I was on the community board, Helen and I spent about an hour down there with the team and just went through the toilets and said, how about we replace the space, and how about we, improve the colour scheme, this area's, attracting dirt, and just managed to do some stuff that was kind of on a shoestring, but vastly improved the offering. And also, I know we've got some community plumbers who are keen to donate stuff, particularly stuff that's end of line that they're not selling. So we could even maybe get the community behind, a bit of a zhuzh up of the toilets down there. Just let's have a look at it. I think that's a really good point, Martin.
Yeah, and look, it's only a zhuzh up that I'll be looking at, because it's just to make them a little bit more it's just a little bit nicer to go into than what they currently are, because as pointed out, they've look and feel like toilets from the 60s. But just a bit of a facelift, not anything too over the top, and perhaps community buy-in to that would be a nice little project as such as well. Also, just wanted to touch on what Tan was talking about with regards to the Waka armour. Sounds to me like the next 8 months is going to be the strengthening. It's going to be not necessarily be able to be used at that South End X-Raptors room, but maybe after that piece of work's been done, the Waka armour could be looking to go back into that space while we're going through the process of what next. I'm sure that'd be a consideration that would be much appreciated. Would that be a possibility at all?
I think we're more than happy to talk. We have talked to the Raumati Community Board about some of those options, so we'll just keep talking and see what we might be able to coordinate that doesn't impact on the construction works.
That would be much appreciated. Just a little note, just to drop down here, the tractor shed as well. Is anything being done around that? Is that picked up as part of the work on the first stage?
No, the work at the moment is really only focused on the seismic strengthening of the pool. I mean, that's in the LTP as part of our project work plan for the next year. We haven't allowed for any additional work on the toilets or the tractor block.
Okay, no, just curious, that was all.
Anything else down there? Really, that's the priority at the moment. Okay, no, that's fine. Look, that's about it for me. I would appreciate the consideration moving forward, and I appreciate we've really got to do the work around the first stage. How long is that lease for, if you don't mind me asking, with regards to the arrangement we have? I don't know if it's commercially sensitive in a public setting, but I'm just curious how I'm thinking it's fairly long term. 10 years, I think, at the moment, 10 or 12. The waterfront actually would like to sign a lot longer lease. So we're currently looking at whether we can legally do that. And that'd be maybe first rights for renewal or something along that sort of line, I'm picking. Yeah, but they obviously would like some certainty over their investment. I'm not sure how much money they're investing, but it's not a small number. So yeah, and obviously they're working in with the council team with regards to this bit of work that's being done, so that it all ties in together as well. That would be a fair assumption. Yep. Okay. Cool. Yes. Lovely. Thank you very much. And I love Tan's idea about a community project about tidying up around the outside and everything as well. We could get some activity down there. But thank you.
Thanks, Martin. I've got Kim and then Nigel online.
I just want to toe talk of what Lawrence has said about the coastal change and looking into that. But and I love an old building, and that's so cute, that building, and that restaurant's awesome. But if you think about that whole place in the park, my question is around, we're focusing on the building and getting that, and we have to do that, get that up to spec, that's fine. But when we're thinking about that whole pathway, that if you stand there, it's quite disconnected, and if you stand at that beach, there's a tirohanga right through to the mountains if you look at that thing. So are we looking at revisioning what that whole area looks like rather than focusing on the building? Because if you'd put heaps of money into the building, like the building is beautiful, but it might be that it's a chance to have a look at what that whole thing looks like, mountains to sea, an opportunity rather than just not to spend any more money, but.
Oh, I think Brendan might be able to answer that one.
He's like, sorry. Well,
Are you looking at revisiting the whole
Yes, we are.
Great.
Yes, there are conversations, and Beats kind of sent through his suggestions. So yes, it's part of Gareth's work plan, the reserve, and so there is a link to the building. So when we get to that point, that stage 2 potentially, when we might go out to the community to get ideas, it would be good to link the two together, Marine Gardens and the building, for sure.
And the reason I say that, not that I hate watching old buildings get pulled down or adjusted, but what the community wants is a space, so that space revisited might look different and might actually be more appropriate like Wakaama, the Paraparaumu and Kapiti College kids come down to Winstones every, like that lake is chocker. And while it's lovely to see all the rangatahi on the lake, like I know they would much rather go out to their backyard and do that. But yeah, just that whole, if you stand there,
It is quite easy to sink a walker out there from personal experience.
Okay. But it's a beautiful view. If you took away all the things that are in the way, like the building, it's a beautiful view right to the mountains. So I don't know what that revisioning looks like, and to link that in, that was all.
Yeah, there are. I can't quite recall when it's on their radar to look at. Was it next year, Bede? I think it's in their radar, on their radar, their work plans to look at next year. The marine gardens. There are some challenges around, like space. We are, I think, maybe maxed, aren't we? The amount of coverage on that site, so we can't do anything bigger than what we've currently got. So there are some challenges around that, but that's okay. We can work through it.
And it's not idle here, so I'll stay out of it, but I just thought it's not my zone.
So great comments. Nigel?
Yeah, I agree with Kim. It's a beautiful view. It actually, on KC News, there's a piece about the Freedom Camping bylaw, which shows the view when you look out towards the island, which is absolutely stunning. If you turn the camera around, it's like looking at something from the 1970s Soviet bloc. I personally find the pool building aesthetically very ugly and would drive the bulldozer myself. And I just wondered, to Lawrence's point, where there's no clear plan. When there was talk of being a marine area. I'm not sure where that went, if it was going anywhere. But with no clear plan, this seems like an extraordinary large amount of money. And if you put the bulldozer through it and then built something that actually looks aesthetically pleasing, I think the ugliness of the building, of the pool building, is highlighted by the environment in which it's set, which is absolutely stunning. So yeah, for me, I think there's some serious conversations need to be had, and people describe it as a loved asset. It hasn't been a loved asset for 13 years. It might be a loved liability, but it certainly hasn't been an asset for 13 years and probably longer. So, I just think there needs to be some serious thinking about what stage 2 might look like.
Thank you, Nigel. Tan?
What's the council's view on temporary art? I'm just wondering if I can provide all the paint and the artists. Can I just paint the outside of the building in a nice mural and colourful way before the builders come on site? It wouldn't cost the council anything.
I would think that would then end up getting damaged, or there'll be a whole lot of activity around the outside of it. And again, I don't know.
It'd be in a controlled way. It would be like done properly. It wouldn't just be off the cuff.
There have been discussions with Rosie regarding, and whether we do panels or something like that on that walkway down around the back.
That's really deep
to the and that could be something that could be done, and so there have been discussions in the last few months.
Yeah.
Just working with her on that, which I think she was bringing the community to do something
if Rosie
like
wants
that.
to do it, that's fine.
Yeah, so there has been talk about it. So I could ask Rosie to give you a call.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
I think that's a great idea. It helps actually disincentivize the tagging as well, because it could result in savings in the long term. Bede?
All right, thank you for indulging me again. Just a couple of things I thought might be useful to clarify. So Wakaama has come up quite a few times, so I just want to let everybody kind of rest at peace knowing that as a community board we have been working with the Wakaama crew. I've spent a bit of time with Teo and a couple other people down there walking around looking at options. We have offered them a space north of the stream to use while that upgrade happens on the building. They're not sure if that fits their purposes, but that was the idea, to give them a space where they can base until all that work is done, at which time we talk about something more permanent. So that is, excuse me, that is very much on the radar, and we are very much working with them as a group to make sure that they are part of what happens down there. So, you know, it's good to see them part of the conversation. The other thing that maybe hasn't come up is part of that building actually sits on what used to be a par site. And so apart from the environment and all these other aspects, I think there's some real historical and cultural aspects that could come out through this building work as well. And it would be really great to see, maybe even if it's just as simple as through the artwork on the building or whatever, but it would certainly be really great to see that history and culture honoured through the work that goes ahead.
Lawrence?
I'm glad you raised that, B, because I was going to say I think there needs to be a pretty strong conversation with our mana whenua iwi in relation to this site, because it is historically valued and part of their story. So I'd be really keen to ensure that they're part of early conversations, particularly if we're going to come up with a big or a plan for that space in terms of stage 2 anyway. They need to be right early into that. So that's just my... So just what Pete said. Thanks.
Sophie?
Yeah, just a quick question of clarity in relation to what Nigel mentioned about the potential, or if, for example, there was a desire to put a bulldozer through the building, which is not something I support, but I'm just wondering, like, I had an understanding that because of the classification of the land, that if that was to happen and we were to bulldoze it, we wouldn't actually be able to rebuild something on that same site. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. So if you were to bulldoze it, then it would be back to open space, not... You wouldn't be able to put another structure there.
Yeah, cool. And just to also point the table to some of the engagement, as Bede has sort of alluded to, through the Our Vision for Raumati project and also through the Facebook group that we've set up, we did a specific post and yeah, kind of kickstarted quite a wide-ranging conversation, and it brought in, I think, like roughly 10 different ideas from people, and some of which some of the ideas people have the funds to help make happen too. So I think there's real potential for partnership in bringing these sorts of ideas to life, and there are already a lot of ideas floating around. So I think it is just, yeah, doing a bit of analysis as to what the pros and cons are of the different options. And yeah, and I agree, like having a bit of a plan so that when the community really does start to see stuff happening, it's good for us to at least say we're working through a process to, you know, figure out how we can use the space, and this is how you can input, and this is when, and getting really clear about the timelines for our community. Yep, that's all from me.
Thanks, Sophie. I'm not seeing anybody else running.
Oh, I think Nigel.
Nigel again. Oh, he was off my screen. Nigel.
Yeah, just a quick question. So Sean's has just said that if the building was bulldozed, you wouldn't be able to put another building in there. Why is that? What's the regulations that says
It's part of the
building there?
It's part of the Reserve Act and the open plan. Open plan space. Once it's taken down, it can't be rebuilt.
Okay, so in terms of that, is there are we quite clear that substantial modification of the building would also be an issue?
No, it can be upgraded or modified.
Right.
Only within the existing footprint, though. You can't extend it out or add another, 20 odd metres on one end or something like that.
Yeah, see, that in itself becomes quite interesting, doesn't it, in terms of what you might be able to use it for. That goes back to Lawrence's point about there doesn't appear to be a plan for why we're actually doing this. Anyway, that's...
So I think it's pretty clear why we're doing stage one.
Oh, yeah.
We have existing tenants. We want to keep them safe. We want to keep the area vibrant. If we agree with that, then we proceed with stage one. I think there's plenty of time to sort out those other questions ahead of deciding whether to go ahead with stage two. I think it was good to clarify, and through Lawrence's questions, that we're not agreeing with necessarily with that today. We're just identifying it as an option that needs further work and consultation and thought and investigation.
And I think Tan's idea is worth exploring. Anybody who's seen the wall in Waikanae, the pop-up, will know just how much that can enhance the value in the area in Waikanae. So I think Tan's suggestion is a very good one.
Yeah, I'm very keen to progress that too.
Yeah.
Speaking of whom, Tan.
Hi, I always thought that land was dockland. Is that right?
It's on a couple of different types of, there's the coastal reserve, there's also, there's a strip that is tied in with a family that goes right along the front of a lot of those properties to the south, and then there's the where the garden reserve area comes in. So there's, sorry? Yeah, so it is a bit of a mixture, but not dock.
Will their family want to have anything, have a say in it? Will they want to know anything, or?
No, the building isn't on that part, but where the road comes around,
yeah,
it all because there was, people have been looking at how we're going to do things over the years, and looking back at a lot of the info that we got handed to us from when Parks had it, it become quite a myriad of discussion and trying to find family members on that one bit, how they could, get access or give access to people legally. It was essentially quite a bit of a
thing.
Yeah.
Next thing, did you know that Waka Ama is like one of the biggest growing fastest sports in New Zealand, and especially among women, young girls. They're going in their droves to start doing this. So that would bring a lot of people to Raumati and to Kapiti. So more and more money would be coming in. Just keep that in mind, especially for youth. We need more youth stuff for youth.
Yeah. It's not just young women either. I've got a couple of friends who've taken it up.
I'll be keen to actually give it a go myself.
Yeah, no, it is. It is big.
So it'd be really good, I think, all along.
I think that's been a great discussion this morning. Thank you, and I think it's a sensible plan that you've outlined today. Just one last question: are the Waterfront still planning to go up and do the rooftop bar? Do you know?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. Okay. Thank you. So we.